Good morning. Slow this book. Good morning, everyone. Hi, it is Stacy with Loving My Veteran, and this is Walking in My Shoes this morning. A second or two late. Got a phone call from my mom, so had to take care of that. Coffee, everybody, get your coffee. Now that I feel a little better with a sip or two of coffee in. Want to say good morning, and we are going to finish up this week communication. We always talk about a lot, so we're going to talk about communication a little bit more and kind of go forward with that because it's important. And today's topic is called the Tower of Babel. It's when we are speaking the same language in the house, but we're not speaking the same language at all. And that is a huge issue when it comes to communication, is speaking and them not understanding. So today's topic is Tower of Babel. Real quick, homework, house cleaning, I guess, that has to be done. Tonight, Let's Talk Zoom meeting. There is a new link. The only way you can access Let's Talk is to be a member of one of the private groups, either the Loving My Veteran Spouse group. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Kim. Or the Vet Connect group. Go in there. The links are posted in there, so there is a new group. We are the caretakers, the way we look at it, of people's privacy. And so when we do that, we've added that as a second layer of privacy going forward. So I wanted everybody to know that. That's why we've done that. So, with that being said, we have that going on tonight. We have so much as usual, always. We're always slammed, busy, weird going on around here. Lots going on. You're going to see lots more stuff starting to come out from Loving My Veteran. I put it out yesterday. We are going to work on something coming in August. It's called Boot Camp for the Caregivers. It will be a virtual seminar. We're going to bring in so many people to talk about, hey, this is how we get started. This is how we get through this. Boot camp for the caregiver. We just think it's something that we all need. It'll be interactive. You'll be able to talk to other spouses, other caregivers, share your problems, your concerns, your issues, and we're going to give you some really good tools that when you're done, you'll be able to do it. And that will be in August or first week of early of September. We will have those dates out to you by Monday, so it will be all about that. I wanted that to go out there. Now that I can breathe for a minute, I just got a phone call from my mom. Sorry I was a few minutes late. She had her shoulder done, and now she's in the hospital with sepsis. So it took me a minute to kind of step back to that, but that's where we are. But she's talking, and, that's always an advantage. All right, and what else do we have? Today is Jen's birthday, so if you see Jennifer, tell her happy birthday. If you see her on the thing, tell her happy birthday. Michelle's having some surgery tomorrow. We need to keep her in our thoughts and prayers as well. But that's where we are. So let's start talking about communication. The Tower of Babel. When we get ready to communicate, and we are communicating, and we are communicating well, and things in our relationship are going forward in a very positive manner, right? All of a sudden something comes up, and it's like we're not even speaking the same language. I feel like I'm sitting sometimes in the UN without the interpreter's headphones on, where I'm not having this translator translate to me. So we can be on such the same page, right? Such the same page, and not even say the same, and not even communicate. One example we had yesterday is I was talking to Carl about something, and I said, I'm really glad because now it's going to be structured, okay? It's something we're doing with Loving My Veteran, and we're going to, about our post being on a time thing, so it'll be structured, it'll be more consistent. And he says to me, it's going to be regimented. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's not going to be regimented, it's going to be structured. And so we're doing this back and forth. Sorry, I got a hair. We're doing this back and forth thing, and we're arguing over the word structured or regimented. So in my mind, regimented is way tougher than structured. It doesn't even mean the same thing to me in my mind. In his mind, it means the same thing. So we're utilizing the same word, you can come to that, the same definition, the same word, basically, just two different words, and we are not communicating at all because of a simple word. So from there, things just spiraled. They spiraled to a totally different place because we were saying the same thing, but the other one wasn't hearing exactly what we were saying. And so now it comes up, you're not listening. No, you're not listening. No, you're not listening. And we're butting heads. And the sad part is that most of the time when we butt heads over the exact same thing. I'm like, wow, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. But we do that. And when we learn, when you look at the Tower of Babel and how it was built, so they wanted to build this tower as high as the heavens, right? And so all these people knew what they were doing. They knew they were going to build this tower straight up. They knew that this is what was going to happen. They already knew how to build the bricks. They already knew how to lay the stuff. They already knew what they were doing. And all of a sudden, they can't speak the same language anymore. And now the thing falls in ruins. They already knew how to do it. They already knew what they were going to do. The fact that they didn't speak the same language, you would think wouldn't stop the tower from being built, but it did. And we do it with us. We do it in our relationships. We do it all the time. I go back to the gravy versus gravy. Can I just tell you that this sister's raised in the South? Gravy goes on your mashed potatoes and your meat. And I brought this up before. Gravy goes on your mashed potatoes and your meat. So when Carl says, hey, are we having gravy? I'm like, yes, meat roast mashed potatoes. I am there. And when he says, are we having gravy? He means freaking pasta and red sauce. I'm like, what the shit? It didn't even make sense to me. It's a different language. I don't know what we're saying. And then if I am fixing meat and mashed potatoes, he'll come and look at me and say, you make gravy with that? And I look at him and I say, you want the gravy like I eat that goes on the mashed potatoes and the meat? Or you want that red stuff that goes on pasta? Because I'm confused. We're not speaking the same language here. You know, one of the best lines ever in any movie ever was in Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate. We communicate a lot. We talk a lot. We say things a lot. We are really open about exactly it goes on potatoes. We are open about a lot of things, but there are days we just don't speak the same language. We don't even speak the same language anymore. And I don't know if I think it's both of us. We get in a mindset and we get stuck in where we're going. And then we think that there's this argument that's ensuing because we think the other one is fighting with us and they're really not. We're really saying the same thing to each other, but we don't pay any attention to it. So we get stuck in that failure to communicate. Because I'm here to tell you, if you went in, good morning, Colleen. I didn't even see you on there this morning. Sorry. If we go in and we sit down and we talk to our veteran and we say, hey, what do you want? And it could be just a normal conversation. Let's say that something normal came out. What do you want from your life? What do you want from your relationship? What do you want, period? And they're going to say, I want to be loved. If they could get rid of all the PTSD, I want to be loved. I want a happy relationship. I want a functioning relationship. Okay, I want to love you back. That's what they would say. That's what we all want. Happiness, no turmoil, all those things. That's what we'd want. But sometimes we just can't say it. And we don't say it well enough. And we're not listening because the other one is speaking in a language. Good morning, Nikia. The other one is speaking in a language we don't understand. It goes back to the Tower of Babel. And it happens. And it happens in every single relationship we're in. It happens in relationships at work. It happens in relationships with our with our family, other family who doesn't live with us. It happens in relationships with our friends. It happens. The difference is that when we bring it home, because we are home more and we spend that time in these situations, and this relationship, your home relationship, is way more important than any other relationship you have. We struggle, and so we see it more, and we make it out to be we're never on the same page. How many times have we all said, we are never on the same page? I am not on the same page with you. We are not on the same page. Girl, if I had enough hands, I could like raise lots of little hands. We're not on the same page. We're not on the same page. It happens so much. When we finally sit down and communicate in the same language, we finally sit down and do that, we find we're very much on the same page. It is truly a failure to communicate because we get caught up in a word, or what's in our head doesn't come out exactly like we mean. Like, I love you, Nakia. Sorry. It doesn't come out exactly like we want it to, and they don't hear it exactly like we're hoping they do, and vice versa. Okay? And tone plays a role, and all of this stuff. And what we are sitting in is we are arguing when most of the time we're saying the same thing. But we bump heads because we get stuck on these little words and these failures to communicate. I was excited that we were going to have structure. We're going to have structure, consistency, structure, a plan, a following the map. We were going to have a plan. This is going to be so-and-so's responsibility. This is going to be this responsibility. This is going to make things work in a good way. We have structure. And his words were, it is regimented. And I took regimented as negative. But guess what? It was the exact same thing. It was the exact same thing. We said the same thing. Strange. And I was livid. 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 You can ask Nakia and you can ask Michelle, because it happened twice yesterday. And I'm running down the road, and I don't mind telling you, because I think we all feel this way, and it's all about being open and honest. I don't mind telling you. And I'm like, Nakia, same thing Nakia has said in the past. Why do I love him so much? Because I could strangle him right now. You know? And it's so funny. It is so funny because we say that. Google's where I go to say, think, look, I can't even do that because Google gives you like 6 different answers, and sometimes it is his answer and sometimes it is my answer, and if we're both Googling it, if we both Google it, we're going to get different orders in the Google. And that just makes it worse. You swore at your partner the other day. Girl, if I could go on a swear-free day, if I could go on a swear-free day, y'all might as well just plan on going to meet the good Lord up above, because the world is coming to an end if Stacy can go on a swear-free day. Colleen, and he may not be talking to you right now. You may need a little space. You may need a little space when you get so frustrated that you swear to him. And I did it like 3 times yesterday. 3 times yesterday. So we all make these mistakes. So don't, and I think that's the other thing, is it's so easy for me to sit here or somebody else sit here and offer advice and tell you stuff and say, hey, you know, this is what you need to do. This is what you should do. This is what goes on. The only reason we can do it is because we've lived it, and we still live it. So if any of you think for 1 minute that as we're going through this, that when we figure out how to set a boundary, that that we don't move that boundary or make a mistake or cross that boundary or let that boundary go down, you've lost your mind, because we still fail at it every day. We still fail at some of these things every day. Because the thing is it is not about winning or losing. And I think we get that so often. It is not about winning or losing, because we are in a world of success and failures. Success and failures. Success and failures. So you work so hard and you get so good at communicating, okay? You get so good at communicating as you're going through this. And you finally get yourself going. And then all of a sudden you step backwards. And all of a sudden you step backwards. And then you think, oh, I failed. You didn't fail. It's being able to go on. Because, see, where we are is the things that happened yesterday, the little thing, and they were big things. They were little things that caused a bigger action. But those things could have, in the past, gone on for days, and we had them resolved way quicker. We still had a lot to work out in our heads, but it was not an ongoing argument. And as far, Mark, you say that, you cuss all the time or you swear all the time, and your doctor says, your VA doctor says it's PTSD. I can't. I think a lot of times it is atmosphere. When we communicate, it's atmosphere, especially in the military world. In the military world, I think that, typically soldiers, military, whatever, they tend to cuss more. The old adage, swear like a sailor. I was a sailor's wife. So I did it a lot. It was just something I did. And it's become more and more ongoing. And so we do say these words. So we do say them. But we do, and part of us getting angry is that cussing, and part of it is getting frustrated, and part of it is the vomiting of the venom and the spewing of the venom. And that's all part of communication. It's part of communication. The fact, like Mark says he swears, Mark, the fact that you see it, the fact that you know what's going on, remember, PTSD does not control you. PTSD does not control your relationship. PTSD does not define you. The fact that you see it is now a workable something. And I just, that's one of the things that I just totally stand behind, is that it is not, I get that. I'm reading Mark says, he says it's because he saw his buddies die during war. Yeah, well, I as a paramedic, I experienced a ton of death and watched it go on, and I cussed and screamed and hollered, but I also cussed and screamed and hollered before I saw my first person die. I think it's just the thing about cussing, I think, in the military aspect, and like an EMS, fire, police, military, we tend to have that total potty mouth concept going on. And I think it's because our emotions are real and they're raw. So even when I hit my toe or whatever, I may say, because I say it. And so there's a lot more to this. And so, that's just an outcome. But it's about learning good communication. It's about learning good communication. And the reality is, Mark, is if you're not saying it in an inappropriate place, who cares? Carl we'll look at each other and say, you're an ass, or fuck this, or whatever. We do it. We do it. We do it. And so, Mark, I'm going to invite you to, because you're new, and welcome, by the way. Let's talk. Tonight we do it at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We have veterans and we have caregivers, spouses, family on there, and we talk from both sides. Okay? We talk about both sides. And yeah, and unfortunately, Mark, you're in that weird era because we've seen a lot of that, and that's something else we need to talk about further. And we may talk about that later on in another thing, is this pre 9/11 group of people, which is where you fall into. They get really in a situation without care that they need. So, and if you want to reach out to us privately, we can do that too. We have a whole bunch of veterans that will talk about anything you want. But communication, y'all. Communication. It's how we set our boundaries. It's how we find more loving ways. It's how we do things that we do. You know, some people, and I love it. I love when Richard goes to bed. Okay, you know, I use Nikki and Richard so great. I love it when Richard goes to bed. So Richard goes to bed, and you know, he's hard of hearing. And I know that this is what happens with the hard of hearing people. The hard of hearing people, like, when you're hard of hearing, they tend to yell because they think everybody's hard of hearing. It just has to do with them. But Richard will go to bed and you'll hear him, Nikki, I need my water. Right? And so we all kind of laugh about it and smile about it, and it's adorable, and I love it. And, you know, where a lot of people would be so offended by Richard screaming, Nikki, I need my water. The reality is that with Richard's health, he's alive, and he can say that. And so where some people interpret that communication as negative, in their life, it's a positive thing. It's a positive thing. I can remember my grandmother talking about my granddaddy. And y'all, they loved each other more than two human beings ever should love each other, were my grandparents. And I can remember my grandfather, I think he went to Hooters for like his 80-some birthday or whatever. And they were like, Poppy, what do you think about you? Ooh, they were pretty. And somebody said to Nan, aren't you offended by that? And she goes, no, I'm not. Because as long as he's looking at it and not touching it, he's not dead. And we laughed about it because I was trying to think about, okay, Nana, look, does that mean if he would have touched him, you would have killed him? Or does that mean that as long as he's looking, he's still breathing? And that's what I'm talking about, these little words of communication. Some people it would totally offend. And then when Nana said that, people would have taken it, oh, she's going to kill him. Right? You are going to miss that, Nakia, Mom, but you know what, Nakia? I will call you and scream it to you at least once a week. Okay? I'm just saying. But, so people would take that and interpret that two totally different ways. Are you dead because you looked, if you would have touched it, I would have killed you? Or are you not dead because you're still breathing? And so it goes into interpretation. People say the same things. They mean something totally different. And they mean, let me tell you something else they mean. This is going to totally, you think we've already gotten on communications being a screwed up situation? Let me tell you this. Your mindset's going to determine your definition. Your mindset's going to determine your definition. If you're in a bad mood, you're going to take something totally different than the way it's said. That's why I hate text messages. Now, I know that text messages work for Sarah Kim and Jason. They work for them because it is to the point, objective, written down, and there's no emotion in it, and they don't put all that in there. But if somebody texts me something and I'm in a crappy mood, I'm going to read it as being a crap mood. So my interpretation is going to be totally different because I'm not looking at it. It's the way I do it. Oh, Colleen, I'm so sorry. Colleen is asking for prayers. We will. So, we take all this. We take all this in. And we don't communicate correctly because we're speaking two different languages at times. One of the absolute best shows I've ever watched, Nicolas Cage hosted it, and it's called The Origin of Swear Words, okay? And he used the F word, okay? So this to me is so great. Depending on how it's used. F can be a noun, it can be a verb, it can be an adjective. You can be like excited about it and go, F and A, and that's a good thing, right? Right? In that sense, F is a good thing because you're excited. Like, yeah, we got this, and you say that F word and it's like, yeah, we got this, right? And people might be looking at you like, ooh, they're using profanity. Or then it can be like, just the desire that, you are hot and you are passionate and you're with your spouse and you're really in that moment and you just want to go brains out and that's a good thing, right? Because that's where you are. Or you can be that same thing in the kitchen with your wife or your husband or your spouse and you can be really angry at them and you can go, F you, right? And that's a negative thing. So the F word I thought was like the greatest thing, and it truly comes by the context in which it's said. So when we talk about not communicating or the sense of babble going on here, it just depends on the context in which it's said. And do you want to know what really stands for? The origin came from, are you ready for this one? Fornication under consent of the king. Even when you were married, back in the day, you had to get a letter that said you were allowed to have sex, fornication, under consent of the king. That is literally what it meant. It was an award. It was a trophy. It was something that said, hey, I'm good enough to have sex here. And that's when the F word became fun and tied in with sex. And now it just becomes like the most universal word on the planet. And I will have to say it is probably the word I use the most. But it all depends on the context that it's used in. And we do. We use it. We use it a lot of times because of the situations we were around, right? And we do because it's more freely done. But also I think in today's society, people don't look at those words as being as bad as they used to be, so it becomes more accepted. I can remember I worked in radio a long time ago, and there were certain words that were not allowed by the FCC. Bastard was one of them. Okay, to me, that's like one of the worst cuss words ever is bastard. And I'm like, okay. Well, they released that, and I said, yes, you can say that. You can't say shit. And I'm like, what? When you had to kind of judge in your anger using profanity, for me to look at somebody and go, you are shit, or you're a bastard. Bastard always came out worse to me, right? I was like, what the heck? But the reason you can't use that word, Jared, is because it comes out of the human body. I'm like, oh. So I think, again, it goes back to interpretation. It goes back to interpretation. And again, Sarah, we look at this and people will give you their opinion. I love this. Sarah says, they usually end up texting everything because the screaming feelings, like we're both going to say terrible things. If it is working for you, use it. If it is working for you, use it. It doesn't mean it's going to work for me. It doesn't mean it's going to work for Nakia. It may work for you. It may work for Sue. It may work for Fred. That's what's unique about this. That's what the problem with PTSD is. And that's what the problem with relationships with PTSD are. And that's what the problems with trying to, all these people say, oh, leave them. They're never going to change. They're never going to do this. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Every single person's is different. How you respond to it is different. How the interactions in your relationship is different. We can give you this advice all day long. And all it is personal experiences that we talk about that hopefully open up a dialogue for you to go forward. That's what it's about. But every single person's dynamics is different. It's different. Because this southern chick eats gravy on her mashed potatoes and her roast beef. And let me tell you, I am so southern that I eat gravy on my macaroni and cheese. Carl puts gravy on his pasta. That's the difference. We can be different. And that's it. The question is, are we as willing to change as much as we expect the change in them? Absolutely. That is one of the most profound statements ever. You know, you so often get in here and spouses are like, well, you gotta do this, and caregivers are like, you partners or whatever, you gotta do this, and 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 you're gonna go to therapy, and you're gonna go here, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do that, and you're gonna do this. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And you're right, Sir Kim, we've all walked a different path to get here. We all have our own personal baggage. We all have our own dynamics. We all have our own personalities. So you put all of that together, makes a big difference. And I'm talking about communication today and the Tower of Babel. We need to learn to get on the same page with the person we are speaking to. And sometimes rather than blowing up, it's about clarity. Because after we stood in the kitchen and blew up for a few minutes, he looked at me and he said, regimented and structured are the same thing. And I was like, oh, I didn't take it that way. And I told him that. I mean, we talked about it after the blow up. We talked about it. And you have to make sure that you're speaking the same language. You have to make sure that even when you're speaking the same language, you're speaking the same dialect. You know, I was all excited. I wanted to learn Spanish, although I probably never will because it's very hard for me. But then I was told, well, that's not conversational Spanish. And when you get to wherever, you got to know what dialect they're using. I'm like, no. I can say hola. I understand what that means. I'll never get dialects. I can barely get dialects in this country. Okay, in English. Tomato, pecan, and pecan. Who says pecan, but whatever. It's the same thing. And that's exactly what we're talking about. It's all about learning the words and communicating using the same language, the same dialect, if you will. That is how you're going to fix the Tower of Babel. And the thing about it is, like I said early on, they already knew how to build the bricks. They already knew. I love that. Oh, Mark, we can't have your wife on with Carl because Carl speaks 3 languages and German is one of them. And I'm sure you've experienced this. He will start out a conversation in English and halfway through it flips to German or something else. And that is like, you're like, ah! I'm like, I can barely understand the English you're trying to say to me. And depending on what it is, it literally will go to 3 different languages. And I'm like, oh no, in one sentence. And I'm like, no, stop. I thought that was funny she said that. Little Cajun and Southern. Y'all, that ought to be one big mix-up in that house. The German and the Cajun and the Southern. That ought to be an interesting... That's just like dangerous living environment, period, sir. I'm kidding. But that's the reality. It's about speaking the same language. But these other people in Babel already knew how to build the bricks. They already knew where the next one was going. And all of a sudden, they couldn't speak the same language and they all got dumb. We already know where we're going. We're going to build a better relationship. We're going to enjoy our life. We want to nurture and have a loving relationship. We want to communicate. Oh my God, that is so funny. Well, you need to be on tonight and talk to Sunny D about the old Cajun and the Creole stuff. Because I promise you, you'll even get your tarot cards read. Because she'll be reading the cards and has a voodoo doll. I'm just saying, it'll be like being at home. Anyway, I'm going to get off of here tonight because this is just, I'm going to get ready for tonight. We have a lot going on. Look for more. I'm going to put a couple questions out on the groups and pages and even different pages. We really are putting together this amazing boot camp for caregivers. It's going to be a seminar. It is going to be amazing. We're bringing in some people to help talk about all kinds of things: self-care, understanding the TBI brain, understanding the PTSD brain. All of those things are all coming in, and we need to kind of figure out, does the middle of the week work better or weekend? So we're going to put some of those surveys out, and that will be coming in August and whatever. Mark, I'll find a way to message you on here and I'll send you the link. But yeah, I get to forget a lot. I barely remember my name. So I'm going to get off here right now. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran. Y'all have a blessed day and we will see you tonight. Bye.